Crystal Choy. So Crystal is one of the characters that was introduced when the story first began, back in the old days of J-High. In fact, she was introduced so early on that we actually got to see her animated. Crystal was first known by her unrivaled beauty, as it was pretty clearly agreed upon that she was the best girl in Lookism. But come on guys, let's not be stupid here. Obviously Zoe Solos. Although Crystal may not have been a J-High student in the beginning of the story, she still at the time had more of an effect on Lookism's plot than a lot of the J-High members. In fact, she was introduced with another member of the 10 Geniuses that we'll talk about later. Now let's look deeper into why Crystal Choy is one of the 10 Geniuses. Well, Crystal Choy is a very intellectually gifted individual when it comes to business, but even then, that may not be the main reason she's one of Elite's 10 Geniuses. And let's stop acting like we don't know what the real reason is here, guys. Come on, she's his daughter at the end of the day. She knows more about him than what he would want known, so it's obvious he would want to keep her close. Now before we move on to the next genius, it is pretty important to note that Crystal Choy is currently the only character to be 100% confirmed to have two bodies besides Daniel Park. So Gun Park, also known as the White Ghost, is the nurture genius in Lookism. Although he might be extremely advanced when it comes to fighting prowess, his specialty lies in training people and really drawing on a blank canvas, if you know what that means. He turns his students from absolute dweebs to literal machines. I mean, just look at our boy Daniel, guys. This dude went from being barely able to go a day without 12 Big Macs to ordering a salad from the menu voluntarily. I think that says enough about Gun's training abilities. The reason he's actually a member of the 10 Geniuses is because alongside Go, he started what is known as the Four Major Crews, which are a whole organization, somewhat, that Charles Choy wanted to start in order to, well, make some money. Gun and Go are both Charles Choy's personal bodyguards. In addition to that, well, Gun is now assigned to be Crystal's bodyguard, but Go still remains the same. Now speaking of Go, this guy is personally one of my favorite characters, and he's referred to as the weapon genius on Lookism's wiki. Everything that I said about him when I talked about Gun remains true. He can turn practically anything around him into a weapon. You see, the art of being a master at using weapons does not lie in the being exceptional at using what already is a weapon, but it is being able to use what is not a weapon just like it is. And that is what Goo Kim's fighting style kind of portrays in the story. He is said to be on par with Gun, although I might as well just spread my bias onto you guys. I'm gonna say it flat out. I think Go would beat Gun like 8 times out of 10. Well, DG is kind of complicated. It's two people in one, but not really. DG is currently the president of PTJ Entertainment, and he's a very famous and popular K-pop star. In fact, the most famous, and that is currently his main source of income. However, this all just acts as a mask though, because DG's real personality was hidden deep under his bedsheets long ago, and that is James Lee. James Lee is referred to as the legendary one-man circle. He is the man who single-handedly ended the first generation with a lollipop in his mouth, and he, in some people's eyes, is Lookism's strongest fighter. You see, they don't call DG just the genius for no reason. In fact, he may think he's slick by calling himself Diego Kong, but I think we all know the real meaning behind DG is just D-genius. This guy is literally just a student in the computers department at J-High, but also not really. He's a real intellectual, a real redditor when it comes to finding people's IP addresses through the internet and sending the main crew over to beat their ass. So yeah, to sum up this guy's character, he will find you, as long as there's money on the line. Although he does tend to let the money thing slide sometimes when it comes to helping the main cast out a little bit. And that's it for the purple-haired teenager. I don't think I'll ever be referring to Tom Lee as anything other than Mr. Carpenter, as it's just become an iconic name in my head at this point. Not sure why, I just really enjoy it. Well, regardless, Tom Lee is a legendary fighter from the pre-generation, and he was part of Gapryong Kim's fist gang back when he was in his prime. He's currently the owner of the White Tiger Job Center, and he's also the man who raised Eli Jang, which gave him the nickname Mr. Carpenter. And he also trained Gun and Go, and turned them into the absolute monsters that they currently are, which is already a feat so massive it puts them on legend status for me. Jin Young Park. This is some crazy fucking bastard who has been the cause of some huge uproars in the Lookism community for quite a while now. He's a member of the pre-generation and was actually also part of Gapryong's fist gang, and was the first ever copy genius from what we know so far. He was good friends with Tom Lee, but also accused him of being the cause that Gapryong died for some odd reason, which, in later chapters, he also accuses Jake's brother of killing him. So either he's speaking straight fluent Japanese right now, or he's onto something monumental. Either way, I'ma let him cook cause I really have no other choice. Jin Young Park is very talented when it comes to medical shit, and he is currently stationed at the Workers' First Affiliate, which is also located deep inside the Earth's ask. Now that does it for all the 7 geniuses that have been confirmed on the wiki, and that leaves us 3 unknown spots left for debate. So the last 3 geniuses, who are they? Well, we may not have a single clue on who any of these guys are, but I'd like to present you guys my own list or theory and speculation of who these 3 last guys are. And while you're listening, why don't you comment who you think these unknown silhouettes are in the comments? I'd like to start with the simplest and most agreed upon one in the whole of the Lookism community. He really is the next candidate for a member of the 10 geniuses, Eugene. Eugene is the president of the whole entire Workers, one of the 4 major crews, and he's one of the smartest motherfuckers in the verse. This mischievous little goober is actually a business prodigy, but he is also very good at hiding illegal acts apparently, which if you remember is also a character trait of the founder of the 10 Geniuses himself, Charles Choy. Eugene hides all of the illegal business that all 5 of the Workers' affiliates used to commit on a daily basis. However, he isn't that physically talented, especially when it comes to fighting. He doesn't need it though because he has Mandyok there for him, otherwise known as Big Black. Now I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole of explaining who Eugene is that deeply, because I feel like you guys wouldn't be watching this video if you didn't know who he was. But why is he a candidate for one of the 10 geniuses? Well, first of all, we have to go back to some context I gave you guys earlier on in the video. This would be the fact that alongside Gun and Go, the main starter and idea creator of the 4 major crews is Charles Choy, and as you all know, Eugene is the president of the biggest one of these crews. In other words, he really is Charles Choy's moneymaker. He's played a huge role in making Charles Choy his fortune through the way he runs his huge major crew, the Workers. Eugene must be pretty close to Charles Choy. Another piece of evidence I'd like to point out is that if we refer back to the Lookism wiki, we find that Eugene is not listed as one of the 10 geniuses at all. However, if we take a stroll onto the Villains wiki and search up Eugene from Lookism, we find out that one of his character traits is listed as being a member of Charles Choy's 10 geniuses. Now finally, the biggest piece of evidence is going back to chapter 310 of Lookism in the J. Kim arc, and we see the flashback of Elite's meeting with the 10 geniuses. And doesn't that look a bit familiar to your brain? We see Elite, Go, James Lee and Tom Lee sleeping on the ground, and we see someone who looks kind of like Eugene looking at some random papers that we don't know the contents of, but regardless, why would he be at the 10 Geniuses meeting if he wasn't a member of the 10 Geniuses himself? Now when it comes to actually naming Eugene as one of the 10 Geniuses, I don't have an answer for that. I'd probably say he's like the Deception Genius or something along the lines of that, but I really don't have a single clue. Now these last 2 geniuses I have the least amount of canonical evidence for, logically, but I've already made it clear that I'm basing this off pure speculation grounds and not much else. So why do I think Jake's brother is a member of the 10 geniuses? Well, first of all, to be a member of the 10 geniuses, you kind of don't really need to be of that much help to Elite, I'm not gonna lie. When we look at Jin Young Park, he hasn't spoken to Elite in practically never. In fact, the only reason he's a member of the 10 geniuses is because he's really talented medically and he's situated in one of the 4 major crews that Elite currently owns. But I'm sure there's thousands of other people who are just as medically smart, if not smarter than Jin Young logically. So why is he a member of the 10 geniuses? Well, my answer to that is probably because he used to have a good relationship with Elite back then, just like Tom Lee, the fighting genius. So if we take this reason as one of the paths to become a member of the 10 geniuses, we have to look at what Jake's brother's relationship with Elite really is in the first place. Just to make sure you're on track here, I'm using the logic that if Elite had a good relationship with Jin Young, which made him include him in the 10 geniuses, he might have done the same with Jake's brother if they have a good relationship with each other as well. Now here's where the pure ass-pulling begins. So assuming that Jin Young is fully correct in everything he says, in the latest kind of saga, it was revealed to us that Jake's brother killed his own father, Gapyong, which is Elite's actual leader, and Tom Lee actually assisted him in doing so, it looks like. However, Gapyong's death is a very gloomy situation and it appears that only Jin Young is aware of the whole truth behind this case. So why is that? Well, because of Elite. It was revealed to us in the story that Elite is actually a master at destroying evidence. It is his specialty, in fact, setting aside fighting as well, of course. So Elite destroying the evidence of Gapyong's death would mean, if Jin Young is right, that Elite decided to back up Jake's brother at the cost of his relationship with Gapyong, his own leader, in order to hide the fact that Jake's brother was actually the one who killed him. In my eyes, this is already strong enough of a relationship for Jake's brother to be added to the list of the 10 geniuses Charles Choy created, regardless of whether or not he's a help to Elite or even active in the world of Lookism as of right now. And finally, we have Daniel Park. And you may very well be thinking, what? Daniel Park? as in the main character? What the fuck are you talking about? Okay, well first of all, I'd like to make it clear that I'm referring to second body Daniel Park here, the guy that we never really even discovered the name of in the first place, but apparently he's just here. So who is this guy? Well, a common theory is that Big Daniel, or Daniel's second body, is actually a human being that Jin Young Park constructed in his laboratory and gifted it to Charles Choy for him to just use it in any way that he desires. But this theory has always kind of been foggy and vague to me, and I don't particularly agree with it at all, because even when Jin Young was approached by Daniel's second body in the first place, he addressed it as if it was his first time seeing it in his whole life, and he decided to run some tests as if it was a normal human being. In addition to that, when Jin Young first found out that Daniel actually has two bodies, he was surprised and uttered the words, "It happened to you too?" Now to me that just sounds like he has nothing to do with the construction of this body at all, because if he was the one who caused this, there is no way he would be this surprised unless this is like Will Smith in disguise or something. So not knowing who the original owner of Daniel Park's second body is, or how this even happened to Daniel and Crystal in the first place, really acts as a huge burden in my way here, but I'll try to explain my viewpoint either way. We do know that Daniel's second body was a gift that the system gave to Daniel Park in order for him to use it in fighting and achieve his goal of uniting the four major crews. This was clarified when Charles Choy told him that he was wasting his gift, which is the second body, and that he should basically grow a pair of testicles and start using it for what it was made for, not for being a 24/7 pussy, but just in a more muscular body. We also find out that this body miraculously gave Daniel Park the ability to copy any fighting move he sees, which was later implemented into both of his bodies, because it was something that was carved into his mind. Now we know that this body is the peak of human structure, and whatever is regarded as the perfect human frame, this body represents that. So to not prolong this any further, given that Charles Troy is aware of the fact that this body was gifted to Daniel Park by whatever the system is, in addition to his knowledge of the system in general, Charles Troy probably has the secret of the two bodies hidden somewhere up his sleeve, and he just does not want to reveal it to anybody. So in conclusion, I think Daniel Park's second body belonged to a whole different identity before it was gifted to Daniel Park by the unknown entity or system, and I am very heavily suspicious of the fact that Charles Troy knows who this identity is, and is hiding it from everyone except for the other 9 geniuses themselves, and I think this separate identity is Charles Troy's 10th genius. Now as far as what type of genius he is, I mean it is unknown what happened to this guy after his body was given to Daniel Park, but it is very much possible that he himself turned into whatever the system is itself after losing his physical body. And if that is so, then this guy has some crazy level of intellect that no Lookism character has unlocked, and that in my opinion makes him eligible to be Charles Troy's 10th genius. I just can't wait to find out who this guy is, and the secret behind Daniel's second body. So this is me recording after chapter 470 has come out, and we see a little glimpse of a third version of Daniel it looks like in this chapter, which was in a dream that Daniel was having in his little body, and a lot of people are theorizing that this Daniel is an end of series version of little Daniel. And to practically cut to the chase, Daniel said 4 very questionable words which may strengthen my opinion here. Charles Troy comes first. So 10th genius confirmed.